Continuing with our dissolution chapter, part 2. In part 1, we learned how to prepare realization account. While preparing realization account, there are some things that you have to keep in mind. The two important things to be kept in mind while preparing realization account, which was covered in part 1, was that sometimes a liability is settled by an asset. For example, a creditor is given stock to settle his liability. So in that case, you do not pass any entry for it. And similarly, if a partner is getting a remuneration and for that remuneration we give him an asset, then also we do not pass any entry for it. Now continuing with the items that are appearing in the old balance sheet, which needs to be distributed amongst the partners in the profit sharing ratio. So those 6 items that you always need to check throughout partnership are: first is general reserve, also known as reserve or contingency reserve. If it is there in the old balance sheet, you need to distribute it. Since it is appearing on the liability side, it means it is having a credit balance. So if I have to distribute it, I have to debit it and credit the partner's capital accounts in the old profit sharing ratio. If profit and loss appears on the liability side of the balance sheet, then again you have to debit the profit and loss account and credit the partner's capital account. If profit and loss appears on the asset side, you need to debit the partner's account and credit P&L. If deferred revenue expenditure, also known as advertisement expenditure or miscellaneous expenditure, appears in the old balance sheet, so this means it's a debit balance. To distribute, you will credit it and debit the partners. If IFF was not appearing in the realization account on the credit side because investment was not there in the question, then this means IFF is still left and you need to distribute it. So if you want to distribute it, you will debit IFF and credit the partners. For workers' compensation fund, suppose the fund in the balance sheet was 100,000, but you have shown only 60,000 on the credit side of realization. So this means 40,000 is still left, which you will distribute it amongst the partners in the profit sharing ratio. With regard to goodwill, you will not distribute it in this chapter because goodwill has been transferred as an asset on the debit side of realization account.